Hi, and thank you all for joining us today. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, I'm ever so grateful for all of your support. And please join us in our chat rooms. We have them streaming all over social media, on YouTube. We're on Rumble as well. So please do join us. We would love to hear your questions and comments. And again, we are streaming live. This is Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, where hopefully we can help you discover your truth. Today, we're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And again, join those chat rooms. We love hearing from you. Today, we're very excited. We have a guest with us today. His name is Peter Panagore. I hope I didn't butcher that. And we're here to discuss his NDE experiences. And he had 2 of them. So we have a lot to talk about. Let me welcome Peter. Hi, I hope I didn't butcher your last name.
It's a common mispronunciation. It's no big deal.
How do you say it?
Panagore.
Panagore.
It's Panagore. It's a made up Greek name as opposed to an Italian name.
Ah, I'm Italian. You think I would have known that?
Well, no, you go with the E on the end. Panagore. All my life, they call me Peter Panagore.
That's funny. Well, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Let me get the ticker up and running because I want folks to be able to find you. And let me just find that. But in the meanwhile, while I'm digging this up, I'm sure you've told this story 1,000 times, but we'd like to find out who you are and what you're about first. You have an impressive background and bio. So I'm going to step off for 30 seconds or so and let you do the introducing, talk about yourself. And for the folks that don't know who you are, kind of dig in and let them know.
Okie dokie. My name is Peter Panagore. I'm a 2-time near-death experiencer. My first death happened in 1980 while I was ice climbing in the Rocky Mountains in Canada. My second one was in 2015 of a widowmaker heart attack. I am from Mother and God. That's where I'm from. But I'm a divinity school graduate from Yale, where I studied mysticism. I got ordained in the United Church of Christ. I was hiding out in the church for quite a long time, trying to figure out my near-death experience. What else can I tell you? I had a TV show for 15 years, 2-minute spot every morning just before the weather on a couple of stations up here in Maine on NBC, inspirational storytelling. And I'm a stilt walker, or I have been. I'm a kind of retired stilt walker. And what else can I tell you about myself? I am married. I've got 2 kids and a grandkid, and I live on the coast of Maine in a spectacularly beautiful place.
I'm sure it is. Maine's a great state, beautiful place. So, I've been there twice, but from what I've seen of it, it's a great place. So I'm very intrigued by your NDE experience. I've interviewed several people who've had them, and yours, is quite unique in many ways. And first, I'd like to tell folks, I'm sure you've told the story 100 times or more, but what happened to you leading up to your NDE? Maybe you could start there.
In brief, I was a national student exchange student from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. In my junior year, I went to Montana State University, and I went in part just to get away from my family. My sister had vanished and run away when I was a kid, or run away and vanished when I was a kid, and it caused a lot of trauma and drama in my family. And so I was trying to get away and find some peace. So I went to Montana State University, but I was also out there because I was a mountaineer, backpacking, woods skiing guy. And so I spent a lot of time on my arrival out there. I climbed in Glacier National Park, Yellowstone, and the Absaroka Mountains, Spanish Peaks. Went to the Tetons, got a job at Bridger Bowl on the National Ski Patrol, and also I went to school. Yeah, I went to school. So I was out there trying to get away, and I was out there for nature. But when spring break rolled around, I decided that I didn't want to go back to my home in the Boston area because I wanted to stay away from my family. My family's a wonderful family. Don't get me wrong; they're wonderful people. I love them, but the drama and the trauma around my sister's disappearance was, well, unbearable for me at that time. And so I didn't want to go home. I wanted to go on an adventure. A bunch of my classmates are all going to Fort Lauderdale, or they're all going to Long Beach, California, or Mexico. It's like, I don't want to go to any of those places. I wanted to go into the wilderness. So I went to the outdoor club where I was a member and had been a leader, trips into the wilderness. And I found a fellow who was going for 2 weeks, 10 days in British Columbia in March, and 10 feet of snow, British Columbia and Alberta and Western Canada and the Rocky Mountains, to go snow caving on backcountry, cross-country skis for 10 days, for 8 days, and then 1 day or 2 days ice climbing. And I'd not ice climbed. I'd done quite a bit of winter camping as a Boy Scout, and right through into college. I had spent the spring break the year before on the Appalachian Trail in Western Massachusetts during the winter. So it was my element. I'd done a lot of rock climbing, but I'd never been on the ice before. That was a new thing for me. But Tim, my soon-to-be partner for climbing, he had his certification as a lead ice climber. He'd gone through a class and got certified, and so he had all the gear and I didn't. I had to come up with the gear that I needed. He had all the ropes and the carabiners and the ice screws. He had all the necessary equipment. I had to come up with boots, crampons, and ice axes. And I came up with everything except for 2 ice axes. I came up with an axe and a hammer. And a hammer is not meant for climbing. It's a much shorter device meant for chipping ice and putting ice screws in and taking them out. But it looks the same. The beak of it is still serrated, and you can put it in the ice and it can hold just like an ice axe, but it's significantly smaller. And on an ice axe, you can set the axe in and then relax, let go of the handle and hang on a strap and give your muscles a break. But the hammer, you got to grip it. So Tim was like, "Nah, we shouldn't climb if you can't come up with 2 axes." And I was like, "We really should do this. I want to do this." And so I talked him into it, and I was very convincing. But this meant that my stride, if we could talk about a stride. So my ice axe stride was a foot long, but my ice hammer stride was not a foot long. It was a foot shorter.
Mhm.
So essentially I was a foot shorter on every single swing. So I was much slower, and I had to grip the hammer, and I could never relax. So I burned out my muscles very fast. I didn't know this going into it. I should have probably figured it out, but I didn't. So by the time we were halfway up this world famous climb called Lower Weeping Wall, and there were other teams on the ice that day, by the time we were halfway up, I knew we were in serious trouble because
Mhm.
we were so much slower than everybody else. Before we even reached the top, all these other teams had finished and descended. By the time we reached the top, the last team was walking out, and they gave me the, like, "What are you nuts being up there?" hands. And we were stuck. The sun went down, temperature dropped 30 degrees. We were instantly, as soon as the temperature dropped, hypothermia began with violent shivers. Like every muscle in my body was shaken independent of every other one. So it was this weird sort of everything, clattering jaw, eyelids, tongue, everything was frozen, freezing. And I was on the ski patrol at the time, and I knew and told Tim that we were in grave danger. If we didn't get off of this mountain, we were going to die here because hypothermia will kill you.
Mhm.
And we discussed what we were going to do. As Tim pulled up the rope, it became a knot. He pulled it up too fast because we were scared. This is the worst night of my life. And all the years that I've been alive since, it's still the worst night of my life.
Mhm.
And I untangled the rope as we discussed what we were going to do. And we talked about snuggling together up against the ice face, but we were already having violent shivers, and there was no way we were going to stay warm. Also, we didn't carry up any gear for the night. No, nobody did. This was a day climb. That's what everybody expected. We had consumed all our food. We had drunk all our water, but there was ice and snow. We could chip on, eat and suck on the icicles. So at least we had that. But we decided that we were going to die there And if we were going to die there, we were going to at least die fighting to get off the mountain. So that's what we decided to do, is try to fight our way down. It's a sheer cliff, like 500 feet down. It's dark. It's illuminated only by stars. We roped up and we traversed, and we made it to the first rappel. We made a mistake. We descended. The rope got frozen to the tree up above. We got stuck where we were. The night is a long series of increasing cold, reducing energy, increasing loss of coordination, because cold steals your coordination. Not only I ended up with frostbite on all of my digits, my nose and my chin. I still have everything, but everything was blistered and frozen, and my feet were blocks of ice. And hypothermia steals your coordination, makes your muscles hard. You ever swim out in really cold water and the muscles it's like that. The muscles get hard to move because the cold is penetrating in, and felt like my eyeballs were freezing. My energy level was so low. We had to conserve our energy because the only way we could stay warm was by moving, but we had to be very careful with how we moved, so we didn't use up any extra energy, and we didn't even talk if we didn't have to. And so it's dark, it's cold, we're scared out of our minds. We've both, Tim did the same thing. We took our fear and we set it aside because panic would kill us. And so we used all this willpower energy to keep our panic at bay, to stay as rational as we could. But meanwhile, the cold steals your rationality too. It penetrates right into the brain, and the brain stops working at its optimum level. And we made mistakes. Like that first rappel, we made a mistake. And we ended up stuck as a result for a very long time, hours, until we got the rope loose. And then we made our next traverse, and hours and hours this is taking us. This is a very slow process right through the darkness of the night. We finally get down to the final rappel, and our hypothermia is advancing rapidly. We're only about 100, 150 feet up. We're on a ledge. We're strapped and clipped into the mountain for the first time. There are safety straps here for practice rappelling, and so we're strapped, and we're not going to fall for the first time as we fought our way down this mountain. And I had the rope, and I tied it to my harness. I took the other end and I tossed it off around the corner, and I pulled on the rope. And as soon as I pulled on the rope, it got stuck somewhere up above in the dark around this corner. And the more I pulled on the rope, the tighter the jam became. And I couldn't flip the line out. You flip a line, make that waveform, and I couldn't do that because it was laying up against the rock, and the jam was up around the corner. And so I understood suddenly, like in a flash, that I was not going to get out of this. I couldn't go up to get the rope, and I couldn't descend, and that I knew I was going to die where I was. And I had all this fear that I'd been keeping contained, and then it just kind of went away. I accepted my situation. This peace came over me. All of the blood rushed from my legs and my arms into my torso. It's a natural thing that happens. Conserving, you need your lungs and your heart and your brain to stay alive. The body knows that. And so I unzipped my coat like a fool because my brain wasn't working, even though I knew better because I was on the ski patrol. And which meant that, of course, I was dying faster because I unzipped my coat. Because I felt like I was hot, all of my heat released and cold got in faster. And I had this peace settle down over me, and I started thinking about my mom and my dad and God and accepting my situation. I was worried that we were going to be found here the next morning. We had signed into the wilderness log. The warden knew that we were here, and when we didn't show up in the morning, they'd come looking for us, and they were going to find us dead. And it was going to be international news. And it was going to be devastating to my parents because they'd already lost. When a child runs away and is gone, it's like this death that never ends. There's no, we talk about closure, and death it's not really closure. It's like chapters wherein you learn to bear your grief and you integrate it into your life. But when somebody vanishes, nobody's there in the community for you, and you're by yourself. My parents chose that in part, but there's no end to it. And so their grief was ongoing, and I was like, they're going to lose another child here, and it's going to destroy them.
Yeah.
So but there's nothing I could do about it. And I began to fall asleep. I fell asleep a bunch of times, which is hypothermic. I smacked my helmeted head, stand back up, pull on the rope. And then I stood up this last time, and I opened my eyes. I had been asleep. I opened my eyes. I stand up, and I got this big black circle around my vision. You stick your hands out, you can see your fingertips if you're looking forward. But that's where the circle was, this big black circle. And it closed super rapidly, just like black, 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 black. And as it was closing, I started thinking, this is totally weird. I'd never seen such a thing. Is this sleep? Am I falling asleep? And I was looking around, and it just became this tunnel vision, which is part of hypothermia. The last thing you get is tunnel vision. And so I get this tunnel vision, and it closes out. And as it closes out, I was thinking to myself, I must be falling asleep. This must be sleep. But when it closed, I awoke, and now I'm awake, and the mountain is gone, and I'm not in pain anymore. And I feel like I'm standing up, but I'm not standing on anything. And I still sort of, my body is behind me. I'm sort of like a fog that is partway inside of my body and partway outside of my body. And I'm not scared. I'm not confused. I'm not upset. I'm just curious what's going on and where am I? I didn't understand. And in front of me, where the mountain had been, suddenly it's this deep, deep, distant darkness. I mean, the darkness is right up against me, but it extends this vast distance. And I was like, what is this? And then way, way, way far and away, this little, like you're in a dark room and someone holds up a piece of cardboard and pokes a little hole and it shines a light through it. There's this little tiny pinprick of light way, way far away in this vast distance. And it's just suddenly there. And then it rushed toward me. And as it rushed toward me, it expanded to fill my vision. And as it came to me, it communicated to me without language. It was talking to me directly to my consciousness. And it said, "You're coming with me." And I replied, "I'm not going anywhere. I don't know what's going on." And I put up my willpower to defend myself against this thing that I didn't understand. And it just took me. My willpower amounted to nothing. And so it just took me. And as it took me, I felt this severing from my body. Now, I've been out of my body before and in mystical experiences. And so I knew this angelic being, this consciousness. I just didn't understand what was going on. But this time there was like this scissors snipped my connection to my body, and I was disconnected, and I was inside of this entity, and sort of like I was formed, and like you know how how they ship boxes now, they put something in it and they put spray foam in it, and the thing, I was like spray foamed in this position. I couldn't move, but I wasn't afraid, and I was completely comfortable and feeling safe and content. And I could see myself, and I had a human shape, but I wasn't made of molecules anymore or cells. I was made of light. And I could see through this entity. It was transparent, and it was speaking to me, and its words, so it was saying without language, comfort. It was showing me its intelligence, its magnificence, but they weren't just words. They were the energy of the word itself. So comfort filled me. The understanding of its magnificent intelligence filled me, and it flew me up back in the direction that it had come. And as it was speaking to me, I had this strong sense that even though it was gigantic in comparison to me, it was like a small mouthpiece of something much, much bigger that was funneling this to it. And so I had this strong sense that it was in two places at once. It was here and there, and this much larger part was manifesting itself as this angelic consciousness. And I had superposition. I had 2 points of view. I was inside of this consciousness where I was comfortable and feeling safe, but I was also outside of it, and because I could see myself in it. I had this eye of God point of view where I could see my light body inside of this transparent, energetic orb being carried. And when I would look in that direction, I couldn't see the eye, but I could see it inside myself. I could see me seeing it, and I could see the eye, but it was very paradoxically confusing.
Yeah.
And then we reached the edge, and this entity either expanded or popped me out. I don't really know what happened, but I found myself inside this huge, gigantic, galactic size emptiness, where there were no things. There was anything that's a thing is made of energy, of matter, of form, and in this space there were no things. I wasn't even a thing. I was nothing earthly at all, or of this universe. I was a giant orb of consciousness myself, like a big ball of plasma, and my identity, my self-knowledge was what I was. I was this energetic consciousness, and my understanding and my sensing devices, they were all one thing. And
Mhm.
I knew myself as my true self. I knew that this is who I'd always been. This energy is me, had always been me, that I had forgotten that this is me when I had been living inside of that creature, that
Mm.
human that wasn't ever really me. It's where I inhabited. But this self-knowledge of myself was safety and peace and contentment and self-knowledge and just beauty. And I was in this vast space by myself, and it was all dark. It was pure darkness. But the weird thing is that even though it was absolutely dark, I could see in it. So
Yeah.
there was some kind of illumination to it, and way at the far edges of it was this deeper darkness that I couldn't see into. There was this infinity that was beyond my expanded intelligent capacity for penetrating our understanding. And I knew that it was infinity. And it wasn't like I figured it out. It was like self-evident. And so I'm in this space, and I'm in this contentment. And as I'm looking, and I have like 10,000 eyes, I can see in every direction at once. In this one space, at this edge of this infinite darkness, it opens itself and outpours all this light. And I it's not electromagnetic spectrum. It's not photons. It's uncreated light. It's a metaphor for something that is the most brilliant, bright, pure uh, power of beauty that was. And I was the size of our sun, and this was the size of the galaxy. It was gigantic, and it was just pouring out light toward me, and it was the most beautiful light I'd ever seen. And in the instant of my seeing it, I wanted it. And in the instant of my wanting it, I moved toward it in a flash. I was like, I thought it, I was there. And I now I'm up against it, and it has this iridescence to it. It's like a waterfall flow, and it's like you ever go to a big waterfall and it flows down, but there's this
Mm.
mist that comes off of it. And so there's this mist, though, is the light itself. And this mist that is touching me is all life energy. It's like it's all of life energy, all of creation, all of power, all of beauty and majesty. It's like life with a capital L, and it's just so attractive. And it's this brilliant white light, and simultaneously it's also all these other colors. It's every color in the light spectrum and more, and they're all like little pixelizations, and they're all in this flow, all these colors, infrared, ultraviolet, and they're little tiny pixels, and they're all simultaneously these individual colors and white light at the same time. It's just I can't I don't know how to explain it. It was them, many, and one singular. And I wanted it, and so I touched it with my energy orb self, and as I touched it, it absorbed me into it, and it opened me and poured inside of me and expanded me, and it
Mm.
was translucent and transparent and, solid at the same time. all of these things I experienced simultaneously. Everything I'm saying, I experienced simultaneously. I was in the middle of timelessness. I've worded it in a way to talk about it, but that's not how it happened. It was all
Mhm.
at the same time, or so it seemed to me. And so I'm inside of this. I'm in the light now. I'm inside of this light, and when I'm inside of this light, I get reshaped again. Now I'm sort of this humanoid shaped again, and I am made of light. Only I'm not. The light doesn't end where this is, where my body is. The light. I also have this mist of light that's emanating from me, and so I'm bigger than my body. And in front of me was a gigantic eye of God, the size of Jupiter. And I'm this little tiny thing in this giant Jupiter eye, which is also made of light, only the light that's coming out of it is its own light. And I distinctly understand that it is creator creating the light inside of me simultaneously to its emanating it. So it's like I'm always in the now. The light is always present in the now. And as it's looking at me, it sees my entire just happened human life. And it's, pretty good. There's 99% light, but there are these dark spots. And these
Mhm.
dark spots are, I don't want the light to see them. And
Mm.
so I put them in I try to squish them together and I try to hide them. And they're small in comparison to the rest of me that's gigantically light, and it's telling me while this is going on, speaking to me. I call it the voice. The voice is speaking to me without language, saying, I love you. I loved you when you were doing all of these dark things. I loved you at every moment. I was with you and I love you as you are, but I still didn't want it to see these dark spots. And so as soon as I coalesced them and tried to hide them, I entered into them. And so now I'm inside of this darkness and I become two people. I become Peter, and I go through this long chronology of every single time I hurt someone in my life, and I
Cool.
feel I understand my reasons. I feel my emotions. I feel the what I did, and how I understood it, and all my anger or whatever it was I was trying to hurt this person for, and then I was all these other people in sequence, matching all of the hurt that I gave away. Only I was inside them, and I was them. I was feeling all of their emotions and all of their physiology and all of their anger and hurt and wounds and confusion, and I understood that the divine lived its life with them as much as lived its life with me, and
Mhm.
that there was no separation, creator, creature. But it's not like I make a little clay doll and set it aside. I'm creator, that's creature. It's like I am the divine is the clay, the divine is the form, and so I experience all of these things from the inside of the other people, and I realize in an accumulation that I had caused a great amount of pain in my life to other people, and that it was and that it accrued to me, and that it was my selfishness, my selfish behavior was creating all of this burden that I was still carrying and trying to hide. But there was no hiding it. It was there. And in the middle of all of this, the light is still speaking to me, love. And then it shows me all of humanity, everybody, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the beautiful, every permutation of, from super saintliness to wickedly bad, worst person in the history of the world, everybody. And we're like a single sheet of paper in our similarity. We're on the same level in comparison. It's like sitting on the moon and looking at the earth, and it looks like this smooth ball, but you know that it's not, but it sure looks that way from where you are. That's how it looked to me, that everybody was exactly the same in our brokenness. And that it wasn't just us, that it was the entire universe, that the very structure of the limited nature of the universe, its existence depended upon the limitations of creation. No limitations, no creation. But with the limitation comes this brokenness, and that it wasn't my fault that I had wounded these people, it was my fault to make the decisions to wound them, but it was in the nature of the human being
Mhm.
to be just like nature. And all nature consumes something else. That's how it lives.
Sure.
And that the purity of heaven was a galactic distance away in its immensity, in its power, and its truth. And so as I see all of this, it's still speaking to me love, this irresistible, overwhelming, all powerful love, welcome, mercy, acceptance, and all of the love that had been given to me in my life, all the love I gave away from all these same people, because you hurt the ones you love. And it became like a lens for me to finally hear the voice that was speaking love to me. And so as I turned my attention from myself, from my own wounds, from my selfishness, as I turned to this unbelievably irresistible water tsunami of love, it just washed me away, washed over me. All of my pain was gone. I became inflated with love, beauty, truth, understanding, knowledge, adoration, glory, magnificence, and they were all one thing. And I could say they were all love, they were all beauty, they were all truth, they were all these things: charity, generosity, kindness, joy, bliss, all one thing. And it inflated me like a huge balloon. And I became gigantic in oneness of being as the light continued to pour into me. And I got to this point at which the light was pouring into me. I was this massively in contentment of paradise when I reached this kind of limit of my capacity to be separate. Like there was this thin membrane that was my identity as a separate being from the fullness of the light. And I got
Mhm.
to this limit where it was so much beauty. It was almost this agony of this place where I felt like if I were to, if this membrane was to dissipate, I would enfold back into eternity. But at this point, I I got shrunk down, and I was like I describe it as I'm a photon, but I was shaped as a human again. But I was
Mhm.
made of light, and I was in the darkness, but I was also like a singular photon, and in front of me was this field of photons, which was infinitely deep, tall, wide, down, right, left, in front of me, and all of these bazillions of photons, they were all entangled with each other like this field of consciousness. Like each one of them was an individuated packet of selfness that all together made the oneness of being, and it was simultaneously one and many, and I was connected to it. I was a photon of this in the same field, but I wasn't actually in the field. I was kind of just a little outside of the field, still in this greater darkness space, but I was entangled with it, and I knew that I was in union with it. I was not separate from it. I was it.
Mhm.
And I'm in this state, and as I'm in this state, it shows me, and it's doing all this stuff to me. I'm not making any choices. It's showing me this. It's
Mhm.
doing I'm being done unto. And then it turns my attention to this edge of darkness beyond which there is infinity, through which I cannot see. And out of this infinity pours this like tube, and this tube is also me, and it's my soul self that is the level above my incarnated bodies. And the voice is still saying to me, I am creator, I create you. All the while it's saying this to me, I love you. All the while it's saying you're safe with me. And I see this soul of me that is always being called into being. It's always in the now, always being created, but it also has this longevity. So it's being called into the now, but it's been around for a very long time. And
Uh-huh.
empty for a long time. And then suddenly there's all these little like marbles in it, all these little worlds inside of it. And there's many of them, many of them. And I understand that they're me. All these marbles are me. And each one is like a little world. I am that little world. And they're all of these incarnations of me, but they're not in the past, even though they're in this timeline chronology. They're all alive now because I'm in timelessness. They're all alive. I am soul inside of every one of them, even though in time, that's not how it works. So I look at them and I see all of these lives I had lived, and I'm way up above, and I want to see into them. Can I see into them? And so I'm swooped down and I get stuck into one of these lives. Like kapow, I'm inside this guy's body, and I can see his hands and I can see his feet, and I'm walking down this dusty road, and I'm in conversation with these guys. I have dark skin. I got hairy hands. I got hairy legs. I'm dressed, but I'm on some kind of thoroughfare, but it's dust. It's a long time ago. There's palm trees, there's donkeys, and there's people walking to and fro and we're going somewhere. I'm having this conversation with my buddies, and we're speaking this language that I understood, but I don't know. And I know that I'm inside this guy. I'm like, I'm in this guy. And because I'm still up above. I'm still, my heavenly self is aware that I'm inside of this other person living this guy's life. And so I am this man, and I'm also not this man. And as we're walking, my buddies, somebody asked me a question, it's a spiritual conversation, and I turn to answer. And as I begin to speak in this other language, I'm pulled out of the body, and I'm zoomed into another body. Only it's earlier in the timeline, and I'm inside of this, and it's weird because I'm inside, but I can see it as well because I'm above, and so I'm like in a little lizard's body. First, I'm inside of this thing, and I'm looking through eyes that are different than human eyes, and so everything looks different, all these different colors, all these different shapes, and I know that I'm absolutely still. I know that there's a predator wants to eat me. I know that I'm small. I know that I have this weird experience of being simultaneously at peace in my stillness and terrified that I'm going to be eaten. And I know that I'm like in a plant shadow, like there's leaves around me. And, but I don't think of them as leaves. I don't have any language to think about them. I just shapes and understandings. And then I'm pulled out again. And then I become like a closer to a compressed form. I'm not this expanded form. I'm not the photon of light. I have a memory of my parents, and I think of my parents, and I say to the divine, and I'm in the middle of this vast darkness. Within the entire thing is the voice, and the voice also sounds inside of me. And I say, "What about my folks?" And immediately I'm swept across this huge emptiness, this nothingness, to this space where there's like another membrane, and only a part of me pokes through this membrane, and most of me expands to fill this place I had mostly this dark space. I'm much bigger inside of it, but this part of me is poking into our universe, and it's our universe as it is in live time. And my attention is brought back to I can see the darkness, the infinite shield, the space beyond which I cannot see, where infinity lies. And out of this infinity, there's this light that's pouring out, and it's like golden light. And I'm not looking to the beginning of like the Big Bang. I'm seeing the now creation of all that there is. And so I'm seeing this light being woven into the entire universe. It's like the whole universe in the now is made of this light. And I can see that this light is inside of everything. It is the structure of all that there is, and it's emanating from the infinite, the Ein Sof, as it's called in Judaism, Kabbalistic. It's this unknowable entity of all creation. And then I see all of these other universes popping off this infinity. It's just like universe after universe after universe. They just keep flying off. And so there's all these other universes. And then all of them as a collective, all those universes, this universe, and the entirety of the infinite itself focuses like a lens of all of it is made of love. So this light is love itself. And all of that love is focused on me. And I have this infilling of unconditional welcome and eternal love that will never end. And it's the size of multiple universes and the infinite itself. And it's all focused on me. I am the most beloved there is. And while I'm in this state of being most beloved, the voice says, all is well, all has been well, all will be well because I am love. And then it shows me Earth like a hologram in live time, day and night. And there's the sun, and I can see every human being and babies being born and people dying and everything that humans do. It's live. People are asleep, and inside of every single person is this like this golden leaf, this little tiny golden fleck that is brilliant with love. And I can see it in everyone. And I then understand that this particular that I am the most particularly beloved in all the universes, but so is everybody else. Even though you can't be unique, you can't be like something else when you're unique. But that's what it was. There was this unique love that exists inside of everything there is, especially living creatures. And that the voice said to me, nothing is lost from me because I am all there is. I am love, and love enfolds. I love myself. I enfold all that I am back into me. There is no loss in me. There is no loss in me. Nothing is lost. And I have this understanding of this universality of welcome and beauty and love, no matter what. And so as I'm seeing this, a fog forms around Earth, and I can see that nobody can see this light inside of anybody else, not to the intensity that I can see it. It's like through the fog. If you've ever been in a really super deep, dark, deep fog, you can't even see a flashlight. It's like you can see the flashlight, even though it's super foggy, and everybody's got one, but nobody else can see it but me. And the voice says, I am in love with myself, and I am all that there is. And as I have this understanding of this universality of ultimate love, unconditional, my parents kind of float up off the surface of the earth, but two sets of them, mom and dad A, mom and dad B. And I see their lives up till then. I see all of their suffering. The lives I see is their suffering. So I can, another way to put this is that mom and dad rose up. I saw all of their suffering, and then they separated into two sets. And the first set is going forward without me, and the second set is going forward with me. I live, I go back to life, I don't go back to life. And I go back to life, it's still pretty awful for them. They still suffer, but I don't go back to life. It's like nuclear war inside their emotions and psychology. It's devastation. But then I'm shown their deaths, and their deaths, they are the same. They come to the paradise I am in. And the voice says, all will be well. All has been well because of my love. And then meanwhile, it's saying to me, come home. It's time to come home. You're welcome. It's your end time to come here. But then it gives me this choice. And you can stay here, you can go back. And I say to myself, I understand timelessness, that the length of any one of my many lives compared to where I am now in my totally true self is nothing. It's a snap of the fingers. Those lives, a dime a dozen, I go through them, and I'm back here again, and I am in the fullness of the divine. And so I say to myself, I can go back. It's not going to be long. I'll be back here in a flash. And I say to the divine, telepathically, no language, if I go back, can I come back here? And the voice says, yes, promises, yes. You come back to me because I am love, and I love what I am, and you are made of me. And so I say, well, then I choose to live my life. And it says, you're not going to live your life, and throws me out. And I get encased in this angelic being again. I'm being condensed and kind of solidified. And as I'm flying out of heaven, I can't see into heaven anymore. There's like a barrier now. But out of this, there's this big, huge beam of light, white light. And it is just white light. And it's like a solid beam. and I look at it, and I'm flying at this super fast speed, and it suddenly it's in front of me, and it sort of stops, and it spreads and diffuses. It's super intense in the middle and diffuses out to almost to darkness. And in all of this light, there are all of these doors, and all of these doors are doorways back to my body. And the entity, the angel, the divine God says to me inside, says, choose light, choose a life. And I know that it wants me to choose the intensity of the beam itself. But I think to myself, I've got a job to do. I had this assignment, that I need to tell people about the light itself, the love itself. And I thought I need to be pretty human to do that. And so I made all these choices. And in an instant, I'm at this doorway. It's not in the fullness of the light. It's not in the edge of the light. It's somewhere in the middle, close to the light, but not in the light. And I'm inside this tunnel, and I'm being flown down this tunnel. And in this tunnel, there's all these doorways, and all these doorways open to all these other tunnels. And it's like this huge field of probability of choices that I have available to me. But I zoom right through, and we pop out the end, and I'm still being encased inside of this being. And I
Mhm.
see a body. I don't know what it is. I see two bodies. I don't know what they are. I'm kind of confused. It's well, what am I looking at? It's like looking at silhouettes, and they're kind of like silhouettes. And we zoom right down to up close to one of them, and the other one's kind of grabbing hold of the one that's prone, and this angel pierces into its chest and opens it, and then crunches me down like an aluminum ball and shoves me inside, and I unfold inside of this thing, and I'm now trapped. I'm trapped in this body, and I know that I'm trapped, and I know that I've been thrown out of heaven, and I'm like, "Oh, big mistake. What am I doing here? I don't want this. I want to go back." And I can still see through this opening, and I can see this angelic being, and it's beautiful, and it's made of light, and it just closes it, like pinches it shut. Doop. And now I'm trapped inside of this thing, and it feels like I'm in a sarcophagus, and it's all full of pain. The whole just being trapped, being in this mortal body is painful.
Yeah.
And then I hear, feel, sense my brain, this brain, not my brain, because I'm not it yet. This thing comes online, it warms up. I feel it warming up. I feel the brain coming back online. I feel like, oh, I begin to suddenly feel all of the physical pain, like frozen feet and frozen fingers and frozen eyeballs and hypothermic and all this. And suddenly I'm just like full of pain. And I'm thinking, what have I done? And I got angry. I was like, why did you let me come back? I'm exiled from this place where there was a bazillion times of light and love, and now I'm down to 0.01%, and I'm stuck inside this thing. And then I start to feel this being bounced around, and I hear sound, and it resolves into understanding, and I hear this voice crying and screaming and yelling, and the body's shaking, and I open my eyes, and there's Tim looking at me right up close. Don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die. Oh my God, you're alive. And he's just crying, and he's in panic, and he's pulling me up, and he's like, I thought you were dead. You were dead. I thought you were dead. And you didn't move, and all this stuff. And I don't know who he is. I don't know who I am. I have no identity. I'm like, what is going on here? I understand what he's saying, but I don't have any context for it. And then suddenly I begin to get context. Oh yes, I'm Peter, and he's Tim, and we're climbing, and he's crying, and he's talking to me, and it just dawned on me a couple of weeks ago that he must have unclipped his harness, because we were safety strapped into the mountain, and in order we couldn't reach each other when we were safety strapped in. That's why he couldn't help me pull the rope. He had to undo himself in order to come, risking his life, coming over to the edge 150 feet up to try to revive me, which he didn't know CPR. He didn't give me mouth to mouth. I just came back. And so he goes over and he clips himself in, and he's talking to me, and I come to understand who I am and where I am. But I have this distinct sense of being not this body and not connected to this world at all. And my orientation is still back to heaven. and he gets me to pull the rope, and the rope comes free on the first pull, and we descend. And the car is right across the street because Icefields Parkway, there's a parking lot with this world famous climb. And so we get the tent, and it's an Arctic tent. It has a chimney and a vent, and we fire up the stove inside. We get inside our sleeping bags. We self-treat for hypothermia because I know how to do this because I'm on the ski patrol. And so we drink warm tea. We slowly bring our temperature back up. And meanwhile, I'm totally freaking out on the inside. I'm like, where am I? Who am I? What's going on? Where was I? Where was it? What happened to where I was? And then we get in the car and we use the heater and heat ourselves up. And I came back an entirely different person. My whole trajectory of my life completely changed. Every single moment of my being was different than it had been before. Now, I self-identified as movement was thought. Energy was natural being. Identity was cosmic. And now I'm this corporeal thing that I have to eat, and I have to, move. I have to breathe. It's very crude. It's sort of ugly to me in comparison to this beauty of light. And yet out of everything I'm seeing, inanimate objects and human beings, everything's radiating light. It's like this powerful light behind everything. I can just see it everywhere. And it's in me too. It's pouring out of everything. But everything is like made of onion paper. It's this very fragile, thin, not worth anything structure that everything is made out of. And I came with this connection to the other side. I came back with this energy that came back with me. And I came back with this anger for not really understanding what I was getting myself into when I came back. And I had this alienation from every person that I knew. And I was suicidal for a very long time.
So you didn't go to the hospital after this event? You just self-treated, you and Tim?
And yeah, because the frostbite, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't third degree. It was second, and it wasn't everywhere. So I had blisters, but it wasn't. I didn't have to get treated for it. And what they're going to do at the hospital for me was bring my body temperature back up anyway. And so we didn't even discuss it. Plus, we're in the freaking middle of the wilderness. We're like 5 hours from Calgary, or maybe even 5 hours from Banff. We're in the middle of nowhere. And so we didn't go to the hospital. And then I became an ambulance attendant, and I made everybody go to the hospital. So I learned my lesson. That was down the road a piece, but later in my life, I was like, no, you're going to the hospital. But for me, we didn't go, and we got arrested for speeding. We got thrown in jail. We had to pay a fine. We used up our money. We got out of jail
from this event.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then I totaled the car, hit a semi, blew the car apart, hit the semi, and my fault. And Tim was super angry at me, and so we had to, the next morning, we had to beg our way into sleeping in this hotel that was the only place where we were, and the Mounties helped us with that. And then the next morning, Tim was so angry at me for wrecking his car. We had enough money left between us that he took a bus back to Bozeman with our skis and our poles and all the big gear. And I took all the small gear, ropes and carabiners and axes and stuff. And I made a little sign. I'd been hitchhiking all the way through college, all over the United States. And so I made a little sign, Bozeman, and I hitched back to Bozeman. And I ended up with a stutter from the car wreck. And I was a wreck. I was an emotional, psychological basket case. And that morning, as I was hitchhiking, as I was waiting for the first car, was sunup. I had this roaring ocean of the divine voice inside of me, still speaking to me without language, saying, "Speak, speak." And I was like, "I'm not, F you, I'm not speaking. First of all, I don't have any words, and I feel like I was." You didn't tell me that I was going to come back into this hell, that you warned me I was going to live my life, but I didn't realize it was going to be painful because when I was dead, I was healed and whole and well. There wasn't like you get a cut and you go to the hospital, they stitch you up, and then you always get a scar and you remember that you were in pain. There was no memory of pain. It didn't exist. And so now I'm back in this place, but I was fortunate that I knew how to meditate because I'd gone to this Catholic school where I learned how to meditate, and meditation became my salvation. Because in the quietude of myself, I could touch the silence, and in the silence, I could feel the light. And in that place, I could be at peace. But all the rest of my life, not so much.
How, gosh, I have so many questions. First of all, it's amazing that you were able to recall all of that. Like I've interviewed several people, like I said, that have and the amount that they remember is not even close to the detailed memories that you have.
My whole purpose of my entire life from that moment forward, was to understand what happened to me. My whole career trajectory changed. I went to divinity school to study mysticism instead of architecture school. I learned my interior practice. Everything that in pursuit of the oneness of being, I felt alone and lost in the world. And so I set my entire self at the recovery of the light itself. And I describe NDE as this gift that keeps on giving. So when this happened, I didn't remember all of this.
Yeah.
As I dove deeper into the experience in meditation and yoga, NDE is this gift that keeps on giving. So this thing about my parents' death and being in peace, I didn't remember that till my dad died several years ago. So my dad dies this horrible death, 3 years of absolute pain, and with good care, but absolute pain and despair for him, the poor man. But after he died, he came back to me for a visit. And in this visit, I saw that. It's like suddenly that door opened. So it's not like I remembered all of it. It's more like the more I practiced my interior journey of non-attachment and meditation, stepping aside, the more revelation and remembrance would come to me. I remember this much of my experience. I know that there was much, much more that happened to me that I don't know. And that it's a revelation. And so here's I was on my own with this. This happened in 1980. I had no guidance, but I had been an English major, and I had read Emerson and Thoreau and Whitman and Blake and Coleridge, and they all were kind of touching into the East.
Yeah.
And so I had an exposure to transcendentalism, and so I went on a journey to figure out how to reconnect. And what I learned in grad school was that mystics throughout the history of the world, in every culture, they all practice mental focus and breath, different forms, but that's what it comes down to. And what I found is that the more I empty myself, the more I remember. And the more I remember, the closer heaven comes to me. And so I was given in this death that the prohibition of taking my life. I was specifically told I couldn't kill myself. And I was left with this deep longing, and this deep longing for which I had lost. So I couldn't kill myself and go back home. And I was always bereft for my beloved. And so
at what point did it tell you, at what point do you remember that it told you you can't kill yourself to come back?
During the whole life review part, that as I was being told that I was created creature, because I was created creature made of light that wasn't my own, as an individualized entity, as a soul, even because I was a created soul, I had no right to kill my soul. It wasn't just I couldn't take my physical Peter life. I can't kill any part of me. And it wasn't that I was told not to kill my physical body. I was told that I can't kill my soul. And so that came back with me as I can't take my life. I can't. There's a continuity. And I was suicidal I was in deep depression. And so I was living these parallel paths. I was diving ever deeper intellectually and spiritually and psychologically and through meditation back to the light itself, while I was living this deep, dark depression of isolation from everybody and everything. I couldn't talk about it to anybody. I had no peers. It turns out that my peer group, I found them when I was in divinity school, they're all dead people. They're all in these books: Meister Eckhart, Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Kafir, Rumi, Hafez. I studied them all, and they like, oh, this guy understands me. This woman's writing about what happened to me. And so as I went through their literature and as I explored my interior world, I began to understand that I had this experience and not that experience. This thing happened to me, that thing didn't happen to me. And it was a revelatory kind of situation.
Yeah. When you were able to reach back into other versions of you, that was in the now moment, right? Was
Always.
it in the now moment? So was it like, do you think that we live in this multidimensional plane where there's many versions of us experiencing different bodies, different lives, but all in the now moment?
Yeah, that's what I experienced when I was outside of time. Inside of time, no. Outside of time, yes. All of those lives, I entered into that guy's life and he was still alive. Even though in our time chronology, it was a long time ago, but in heaven, it was now. And whether there's multiple Peters, I make a choice, I go left and the other Peter goes right and there's multiple.
Right.
I don't know about that outside of my experience. But what I do know is that my soul is living in all of those lives simultaneously in heaven. And if that's, if I call it heaven, in this other dimension where I exist in all of these bodies, but it wasn't just existing in all these bodies. I had all of these soul levels. There was like soul levels this way and body levels that way. And they were all at the same time. And in subsequent mystical experiences, here's a deep practice. And I recommend meditation to everybody who's had a near-death experience, because in the quietude of self, it makes you more permeable to the presence of the light.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what it does. But another thing it does is it makes you more susceptible to other mystical experiences. Not one that I'm pursuing, because I'm only pursuing the gift giver, not the gifts. I'm not after manifesting anything. I only want this one union light that I know that is me at the core of my being. And so in subsequent mystical experiences, and one in particular, I kept popping. I was being carried by the same energetic angel being consciousness, and I was like popping into layers of heaven, and I'd be in this layer of heaven where a layer of my soul self was stripped off, and I'd be like, wow, this is the highest, most pure that there is. And then I'd be in another one, and then I'd strip off another layer, and it was just like this layer after layer after layer after layer of more and more purity of self, not just on earth, but in my soul. And that is a continuing process. It's not like it happened in this vision and now it's not happening. It's still happening because I go back there sometimes. I don't intend to go back there. I just find myself there.
Do you think evil exists after that experience? Do you think that evil exists in just humanity in and of itself? And when you saw those gold leaves inside of each person, were you only able to perceive goodness? Did you get any glimpse of anything opposite to that?
I saw inside of everyone, at the core of their being, at the core of everything that there is goodness with a capital G, that nothing exists without that. But that said, everyone was kind of blind to it, and they were still murdering each other and killing each other.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was still, even the guy pulling the trigger in the bank robbery, he still had the gold light inside of him. He just couldn't see it. and it was buried deep down. I could see it, but he couldn't see it.
Mm.
And in my human life, in this lifetime, I've encountered evil. I've encountered I think there's a dark shade entity that is tried to eat my soul more than once, many times, in that hemigenic state where you're sleeping and you can't move and you're frozen, and this entity emerges from the darkness and it wants to suck my soul clean, wants to eat me.
Is this after your NDE or prior to?
After. And it happened a lot. And then I worked in a city for a while. And one day I was out for a walk on a lunch break, and I'm over by the courthouse, and this is after my NDE. This is not so many years ago. And I'm walking, and I see this, obviously a lawyer. He's carrying a briefcase, and he's got a suit on, and he's got his client behind him, and his client kind of looks tough. And as I walk toward these guys, there's like this field of darkness around this client, and it's like 10 feet from him. And I'm walking into him. It's like stepping into a bubble of
Mm.
of hate. And I like stepped away off into the sidewalk, into the street, to avoid this guy. And as I walked by him, he poured out more directly at me, just like he was hatred itself. And it was like I touched evil. Now, whether that was an entity in him or whether it was him, I don't know. All I know is that even there in his eyes, I could still see the light. I could still see it. It's not like it's hidden from me. It's just that it gets so overpowered by, I don't know, wounds and trauma. So I don't have all the answers. I just know what I know. And I know that I don't know everything.
This entity that you call the creator or God, he spoke to you. We'll say whatever.
I call it it.
Yeah, it spoke to you of pure love.
Yeah.
Was that a familiar feeling to you? How could you describe that love? Is it the way we love our loved ones, our mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, loved one, or was it something very different from that?
I would say, I do say that those kinds of love of mother, father, brother, sister, friend, pet, cousin, they're all aspects of this, like little fragments of the same love. But if I took all of the love that was ever given to me in my life and all the love I gave away, and and everybody did that, and we put it all into one pile, it would still be too small, way too small. I think it's in the Upanishads where it says, it warns against using the word love to describe Brahman, or whatever the entity you want to call it, because it makes people think that it is a human thing, and it's not.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not. It's ineffable. It's unspeakable. It's uncontainable. It's infinite, and it is.
Yeah. So when it spoke to you and used the word love, you said many times that it reiterated to you, I am love, you are love. Do you think that word, because I would imagine that there's no word attached to that was your word because you couldn't describe, right? Am I right in assuming that?
All of these are my words. And I struggled a long time. I used to call it to myself beauty.
Yeah.
I would call it the beauty. I would, in my own mind.
Yeah.
And because beauty is, well, it's not personal, and yet it touches each person. And then I was like, well, people might misconstrue that. They're going to misconstrue every single word that I use. The closest one is love. The other closest one is light. But people automatically think the light is, somehow photonic, and it's not. It's Orthodox Christianity calls it the uncreated light, and I like that, the uncreated light, or I could
Mhm.
say the uncreated love, or the unmanifested being of love. But love is it's what Jesus said. And so I was like, well, if Jesus is talking about love thy neighbor, love God above all things, maybe that's a word that I can use. And so I landed on love because it approximates most
Right.
closely the selflessness of the divine, the giving of the divine, the benevolence. You know, in Islam, they have 99 words for God. And in your audience, you ought to Google the 99 names for God and read down the list in English. You'll have a more complete view of what love is.
Now, you were a religious man before this NDE. You were a ministry, correct?
I was a minister after my NDE.
Oh, after it. What
I
about
was
prior?
I was hiding out in the church after my NDE. But yeah, prior to it, I was raised Greek Orthodox and Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic high school, but when I was 5 years old, I had my first out of body mystical experience where the same angelic being came and took me and brought me into the presence, into the void. People call the void, into the void, into this great darkness, and I was contained inside the protective sphere of this angelic being, and I was had this experience where I came away understanding that I worked for God in this lifetime. That was my job. That's what I had agreed to. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. And I experienced wisdom and compassion. I experienced the
12 years old?
5. And then when
Oh,
I was 6, I had another one. And then when I was in college, pardon me, in high school, because my sister had vanished and I was suicidal, I tried to kill myself and failed. And so the next day I took a triple hit of LSD and I had this end of duality experience of the presence of God inside of everything physical and overwhelming. And then again, when I was on the Appalachian Trail backpacking in winter, the March before I died, I had these 2 other out of body experiences, same angelic being every time. And I didn't understand them.
yeah.
And so, yes, I was religious, but mostly my religion was colored by the living presence of the divine that manifested as this angelic being that came and told me things, showed me things, brought me to other worlds.
So when you were 5, like, walk us through that. What do you remember? Because
Well,
5, I mean, I remember 1 or 2 things from that age, but I don't really recall too much. Like,
well, here's the weird thing is that in all of these experiences, I was out of my body when they happened. I didn't have a brain with me. And that somehow or other, all of these experiences have come back and into my brain. And I don't understand how that works. It's just what it does. And so when I was 5 years old, I was in kindergarten, half a day kindergarten, and I went to the public school. My 2 sisters went to the local parochial school,
mhm.
Catholic school. And they were 2 years older and 4 years older than me, and they had to wear little plaid skirt uniforms and all that stuff,
Yeah, I
and,
lived through that.
yeah, so, and so my baby brother had just been born, and I was 5, and he was just born, and so my mom said and it was autumn day, early autumn, like September, and maybe even still summer, green leaves and green grass, and my mom said, "You gotta stay out of the house till the baby wakes up, you can't come back in." Because I don't want you to wake the baby up. She's ironing my dad's clothes and all that kind of stuff. And so I went out in the yard and I got permission from my mom to climb the maple tree in the front yard.
Mhm.
She watched me climb up the tree until I was safe. And then I just was staying there to scare my sisters when they got off the bus because they were going to walk right by me. I was going to jump down and like, boo. And I had this big plan. And as I was sitting like 2 branches up, I wasn't very far up, maybe 7 or 8 feet. But I'm surrounded by these maple leaves, and the maple leaves have 2 tones. They're green on one color green on the top and another color green on the bottom. And
Mhm.
when the breeze hits them, they flip. And
Yeah.
so I'm up in the tree and I'm watching them, and I become mesmerized by this because they're all around me and they're all flipping, and I'm mesmerized, and I enter this state of I don't know, mesmer, where I am very calm and just not thinking. And at the moment that I enter this state, this loud noise happens behind me, and I'm not startled by it, but it's like all of the the horns of a car, of all the cars in the neighborhood, are blasting right behind me. And as this noise is happening, announcing itself, this entity reaches inside of me and snatches me out of my body. And I'm now with this being, and I'm being pulled up this long chute, and I'm flying up this long chute, and I'm not scared. I'm like protected, and I can
Yeah.
see the tree. I can see myself. I see the tree. I see my house. I see the neighborhood. I see the state, and then I'm like, I see the curvature of the earth, and then I'm like up to the edge of the atmosphere, and then we pop through the edge of the atmosphere. Only it's space. We pop into this other dimension. In this other dimension, I'm inside of this orb, this transparent orb, and it's all darkness in every direction, like deep darkness. But this I can see. I can see that it's dark, and I can see inside this orb, and I can still see the little boy in the tree. And I'm electric, or electrons or photons or something. I'm not a body. I'm a shape, but I'm not a human. And I know that I'm okay. And so I'm in this space, and I kind of remember myself, and then the bubble opens, and I get sucked out, and I'm floating in this space, which is entirely made up of the divine. It's like a living entity, this whole void, this whole darkness. It's all one endless wisdom, contentment, power. And it's also right next to me. And I know that it's next to me because it's giving me comfort as I'm like in this, like, freaked. I was like, what? First I'm freaked out by this, and then I'm content with this. Like, what's going on? And then I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm in this, and then I get shoved back in this. I have this wisdom thing that happens to me, and I get put back in the body of this angelic being, and I'm in the sphere again. And then the darkness comes into the sphere, and this darkness, it changes form 10,000 times. It's changing colors and forms and materials. It's just all these things all at once, but it's speaking in one voice. And there's like a barrier between me and it, like a counter or a space. There's something that's preventing me from being completely in its presence. But it's speaking to me, and it says to me, you remember our deal. This is all not language. You remember our deal. You work for me in this lifetime. That's what you agreed to. I'm here to remind you that that's true. And I was like, oh, right. That's right. That's what I agreed to. And I remember this, and I'm understanding, and I feel good about it. And then I'm sent back down again. This entity, this angel, brings me back down again, back down the same chute, and I'm popped back in the body again. And now I'm awake. I'm like, oh my gosh, I work for God. And I'm this little Greek Catholic boy, goes to church, goes to 2 churches every Sunday sometimes. And, dad and mom, and I'm the oldest son. So I go to the Greek church. And so I jump down out of the tree, and I'm thinking to myself, I work for God. I work for God. I'm going to be a priest. And I run in the house, and I get in the house, and I got, like, skid on the floor because I'm 5 years old. And I say, Mom. And then the baby cries upstairs. And my mom's like, and now I'm scared, and I quiet down, and I'm nervous, and the baby doesn't wake up, and she's ironing the clothes. I told you to stay outside. Why did you come inside? I said, Mom, God told me I'm going to be a priest. She said, okay. If you're going to be a priest, you need to go in and dust the dining room right now. That's your punishment, because you're not going to have a wife like me to iron your shirts or dust your bedroom. Or so I got, like, punished. And so I got the spray, and I dusted, and then I got sent outside again. And I realized that I was never, ever going to mention it again. I would keep my lips shut. If anything ever happened to me, I was never, because I'm going to get in trouble if I do.
Yeah. Now, you had that happen to you how many times as a child?
5, 6, 18, 19.
Wow.
And this is a splint, by the way. It's a fingernail splint, if you're wondering what that thing is. and then they all kind of made sense. Like I understood some of the messages in each one of them each time it happened, but it wasn't until I died that they all sort of lined up and like a domino fell over. Like, oh, they were all preparing me. They prepped me for this. Like I've been on this path all this time and I didn't really know it. And even though I made choices along the way, like I chose to take that LSD, I chose to go backpacking on that trip. I chose to go climbing. The consequences of those actions resulted in these mystical experiences.
So maybe it really wasn't your choice. Maybe
I wonder.
Yeah. I mean, it seems that way to me, that it was kind of predestined for you to do that. So it makes you wonder about free will too. Like,
I don't know. I know that I was told when I was dead that I didn't have to go back to my life. I was given this choice. But you know, when you're omniscient and you know everything about everyone, how did the divine not know that I was going to make that choice? I mean, I don't really, I don't have answers for these paradoxes. And yet I also know that all the times that I hurt people, I made the choice to hurt people. I had free will.
so you were able to see those events with clarity when you hurt someone.
Oh,
How
yeah.
many of them were there? Were there a
Oh,
lot of you?
there were a
Like,
lot.
there were a lot.
Every single time I hurt someone from birth till the day that I died, there were a
Could you
lot of them.
example of what that would be like? Like, what? Give me an example of what you hurting someone that it would create this.
Oh, something not major things. Like I remember the one that I remember had to do with my sister who was 2 years older than me. And she had done something to me. I don't even remember what she did to me. But what I remember is that I really wanted to hurt her back. She had made me angry and had hurt. Maybe she took something of mine or maybe,
Yeah,
you know, we had a fight over something and I was like, I really want to get you back. And so I kind of screwed up all my and I gave it to her and I hurt her on purpose. And I really did hurt her. And when I was inside of her, her confusion about it. Why was he doing this to me? What did I do to deserve this? Why does this hurt so much? And I made her cry. You know, she's 2 years older than me. She could beat me up. I made her cry. And so
So when you were revisiting this moment of hurt and you were inside of her spirit, her entity,
I was inside of her physical body. I was inside of her.
so
In that time when it happened.
And you were able to experience all her pain and sadness, and so that you could see what it felt like to hurt her.
Yes.
And then
not just see it, feel it and experience it.
So you felt remorse, and then what happened to that?
I felt shame. I felt shame.
Yeah. Did that black spot disappear, or did you just move on?
Completely. No, it was the overwash of this unconditional love that was always on offer. It wasn't like God was the divine was saying to me, here's my love on offer now. It's like that. It was always on offer since the moment of my creation. It's the essence of my being. It's totally what is. And so all I had to do was turn to it. And when I turned to it and accepted it merely by seeing it, by welcoming it, it was, and I can't imagine how anyone could not. It was a tsunami of love. It's like that scene in that movie where there's this dad and this daughter, they're on the beach and they're hugging each other and they see this 300-foot wave coming toward them. Yeah. It's like that. It's that big, irresistible love. And so when that overwashed me, all of that was gone. It wasn't like I had to let go of it. It was just, and it wasn't like it detached from me and floated away. It dematerialized as if it never existed. It was gone. I was in healing and wholeness and wellness that I can't even express how much a loss that was to come back here. And knowing that that's where I'm going when I go.
Yeah, of course. Did it give you any clarity as to why we're here to begin with? Is it just, as we've heard time and time again, life lessons to experience them? And like, did you have any clarity as to why we exist in the first place?
Well, I can say several things. One, I can say that when I was dead, I didn't need any life lessons. I had that life review, and once after that life review, I knew everything that I needed to know. It wasn't like it wasn't coming back here, I became stupid. I became limited by my brain. And
Yeah.
so, the other side is like this super duper, you know, getting a graduate, getting your doctorate in every subject there is from every university there is, and then not having to study to get it. You just like know it all. It
So it's
was
like a download of all
everything. Yeah,
information.
everything. And so when I came back here, what I came back understanding was that my purpose isn't to speak this. It is part of my mission, my calling. My purpose is to love the love that loves me. That's my goal. Is to love the love that loves me, to be in the light that I am, and in that action, in that pursuit, that's my lesson. How do I strip away those parts of me that are preventing that from being my experience in every moment? What's in my way? Turns out that the only
Yeah.
thing in my way is me. And
Yeah.
so the lessons I learn aren't so much, and I definitely learn lessons. Okay, it's not like I go through life without an education. I get educated every freaking day.
Yeah.
You know, something I learn something new every day, and some of it's by trial, and some of it's good, easy. But I learn stuff every day, and some of that learning has to do with my trauma and learning how to undo the trauma of my life. And but in terms of spiritual growth, the lessons the lessons always have to do with love. They have to do with kindness and charity and generosity. And sometimes it's weird because sometimes when you're kind and you're generous to one person, that means you're being mean to somebody else. Say for instance, you come upon the scene where it's a domestic violence scene and
Mhm.
somebody's beating somebody up. Well,
Mhm.
you get in between and you knock that other person down. You're hurting that other person, but you're saving this person. It's not always.
Right.
So when I was in high school, here's what my favorite example is. I was in love with two girls at one time. And and I had to disappoint. They're like, you can't have us both. You got to choose one. And so I chose one, and then the other one was hurt, and
Yeah.
really hurt. And so much so when I ran into her best friend in New York City decades later, and I introduced to myself, she looked at me, she stepped back and she looked me up and down and said, "Oh, you're Peter Panagore. You broke Patty's heart." This is like
Oh,
30 years later. And I'm like, yeah, I did. And so it's not clean.
yeah.
It's all these gray shades. Um,
What do you experience now when you intentionally or unintentionally hurt someone? Like,
remorse.
you yeah, do you try so hard not to do that more so than ever before? Like,
Uh,
how has that
yeah.
changed for you?
And yet I continue to. So part of the thing is I know that forgiveness and mercy is real, and that I wasn't judged. I judged myself. It's not like I was in a court of law that God was like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah." It wasn't like that at all. I judged myself in comparison to the purity of the goodness itself. I could see my own not goodness. And so I try as best I can
Yeah.
to be as kind and helpful as I can. But even so, say like in December this year, I hurt somebody. The traumas of my early life that I haven't unpacked yet. And I've been in
Yeah.
therapy, and
Yeah.
it turns out talk therapy didn't help me with this. And I found out that, oh my gosh, I hurt this person when I should not have. And I knew better, but my trauma self rose up against me and I did it anyway. And
Right.
so here I am 40 years into this practice and I'm still figuring this out.
Yeah.
It's not about perfection, it's about growth. And
True.
so what it empowered me to do was now I'm doing somatic therapy, which is freaking working, by the way. So I'd heard a lot about somatic therapy from people that your body you embody these traumas from your youth that you don't even remember what they were, and they're there. And it turns out that I walk away from my therapeutic sessions with a lightness of being I never had from talk therapy. Not knocking talk therapy, but
Heard of that before. Maybe you could just quickly explain to our listeners what that is.
so I'm a neophyte with this. Okay, so this is new to me, but I have this Zen master. This guy's he's 20 years older than me. He's been in the spiritual life for a very long time, and is a somatic therapist. And so I drive a couple hours to go see this guy, and I lie down on a bed, a mattress, and he says something like, "Okay, we're gonna do some rapid breathing." So I do a lot of pranayama breath. So I'm doing some pranayama breath, going, or something like that, or go. And so I'm doing these rapid breaths where I kind of bring myself into focused mental space without thought. And then when I'm in this focused mental space without thought, he says, "What are you feeling?"
Mhm.
And what I was feeling was anxiety. So I was like, "I feel anxiety." And he says, "Okay, now feel that anxiety. Don't judge that anxiety. Just feel it. Just let it rise up. Where in your body is it?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's right down here." And he says, "Now what's underneath it?" Oh my gosh, there's anger underneath it. And so it's like these layers of it. It's not so much about the naming of them as it is about the feeling of them.
Mhm.
And then so we get down to this root of this anger, and then he says, "Tell me about the first time that you felt this anger." And so I go back to my childhood, and I talk about this time when I was a kid, and I was in the post office. I might have been 4 years old or 3 years old, and I was with my dad, and I was swinging around this post, and I fell and I split my head open, and I was blood everywhere. It was a forehead cut, and I still have the scar. It's small, but there's blood everywhere, and I'm crying, and my dad's upset, and he can't get done, and he's got to go home for dinner, and he can't go home for dinner. My dad's all upset, and he's angry at me, and I feel like, they get me to the hospital, and I am like, "Ah!" And so like 3 doctors and 4 nurses and my dad, they pin me down as
Mm.
they hold my head still, and they stitch me up, and I'm in terror. I was terrified. That experience, as it turns out, produced anger at my dad, because
Ah,
I thought that he was angry at me. And so I had this shame and this pain, and so what I did in the somatic therapy as this, and I wasn't like hunting around, what's the earliest thing? It just kind of rose up. There it was. This is the thing. And so then the guy says to me, "Here's some pillows. Pound on these pillows and yell at your dad." So I'm screaming at my dad, and I'm pounding on the pillows, and I'm kicking my legs like I was in this bed again, being pinned down by these people. And I'm kicking my legs, and I'm struggling to kind of go through the physical thing of it. And then it was like this billiard ball of anger that I didn't even know was lodged in my body became like a neutron star. Neutron stars are these exploded
yeah.
stars, super condensed, and are only made out of neutrons, and they have these beams that point out of them. It's like this beam was pointing out of it, and it was drawing out all of the energy, and it was like this. And then the billiard ball of anger became like this sort of soft, cuddly little stuffy, still some anger in it, but it's not this anymore. It's this
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I went away with this happiness ever since. So after, when I was dead, I experienced joy that's off the charts. Joy that is, I have never felt joy in this life. Joy. I was happy when my kids were born. I was a joyousness. Yes, I was joyous when my kids were born. I was joyous when the day I was dying the second time, but nothing like on an average day. Joy was just not part of my life. It
Yeah.
was locked inside of this thing. And when this thing released, I had joy like I have joy now. Like I didn't have joys from the day that I died till I came back, other than the birth of my kids and the day that I died the second time. I didn't experience joy. I experienced love and charity and truth and goodness and peace, but joy, it was not there for me. And
Yeah.
now it is.
And that's because of this somatic therapy. You feel that it's
Yep.
allowing you to be joyful again.
Yep. And I didn't walk into it without any education about it. I read this guy, Waking the Tiger. It's the origin story of somatic therapy. And I read this book first, and I was like, oh, well, that really might actually work. And so then I went, and lo and behold, I'm dealing with childhood trauma. So one thing I want to say about NDE is that when you come back from your near-death experience, you might be a different person, but you still got the same body and brain.
Right,
And
exactly.
my behavior was different. I asked my mom and my dad, this is before my dad died a few years ago when he was well. I was like, when I came out to my parents, I kept this a secret for 20 years. And when I came out to my parents as a near-death experiencer, they didn't believe me. And when my book came out, they still didn't believe me. And so one day I was visiting them, and I said to them, so you remember that summer that I came home from Montana? Did you notice anything different about me? And they look at each other, and my dad says, well, Pete, your mother and we noticed that you were kind.
Ah,
I was like, yes, that's it. I was like, because I didn't want to hurt anybody anymore.
right.
And so, and then I ticked him off when I told him, because I was going to go in architecture, and I'd been pushing a pencil at the drafting board and working in construction and kind of learning the business on the inside out and all this stuff. And then I was sent out to go to this property in my city that I was living in, that we lived in. It was going to be developed into a mall, and my dad wanted the job. So my job was to go out and survey this property. It was wildlife. It was blueberry bushes and trees and butterflies and bees. And it's a summer day. And this is the summer after my NDE. And I get there, and I get out of the car, and I walk 3 feet into it. And I'm like, I'm taking my shoes off. So I take my shoes off, and I'm walking and it's just like nature is speaking to me. Like
Wow.
light is pouring into me. And I was like, I can't participate in this. So I went back and I said, Dad, I'm not going to be an architect. I can't do this. And why can't you do this, Pete? Well, because nature's alive. And I was trying to, how do I tell my parents that I can't, and this is not to say that I don't cut the grass, and I haven't cut down trees since then, and I have.
Right.
But
So what happened to you you had another near death experience, right? Can you tell us quickly about that? And was it anything like the first one?
It was a little like the first one. The same angelic entity came for me the second time as it came for every time that I've ever been out of my body. So this was in 2015, 10 years ago, and it was August, and I live on the coast of Maine, which is vacation land, and so it's busy here in the summertime. And the day before, my folks were living on Cape Cod. I was down like fixing up the house or painting this or something or other for them for the week, and on vacation, quote unquote, working around their house. And then I went out for a run and in this preserve, and I was like, oh my God, this is the worst run in years. Why? I'm in good shape. I was running 5K every other day for years, and I just felt terrible. So I went back to the house and I said, I'm going to go home. And I'm going to go sailing. Someone had lent me a sailboat for years. So I had this use of this sailboat. So I was like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to go sailing on my last day of vacation. So I drive home, and in the morning I go down to the dock to go to the boat, and I can't see the boat because it's all fogged in. So foggy, you can't even see it. It's like, oh no, I'm not going sailing. I have a couple of hours before I'm on granddaughter duty. And she was only 1 year old at the time. And I think they were visiting.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to yoga class. I pick up my stuff and I go to yoga class, but I'm late, and I get there and the place is packed because it's summertime. There's all these summer people and people I know, and the teacher's a friend of mine. And so she lets me set up in the door jamb, and it's a hot yoga class, and I get in the downward dog and I start to sweat like immediately. I'm like, oh, something's wrong here. And so I lay down in Shavasana on my back, my legs are apart, and it's like, I am sweating way too much for not doing anything. And I was like, oh, my heart hurts. And after ski patrol, I've been on, I lived on an island off the coast of Maine for years, and I was an ambulance attendant. And so I was like, oh, I'm having a heart attack. And I know that my grandfather died on my first birthday of a heart attack. My dad would have died in his 50s, but they life flighted him and saved him with this experimental drug. And then my sister who ran away, died in 2007 of a heart attack. And this is 2015. I was like, so
Wow.
runs in the family.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm in super good shape. It can't be serious. So I get up and I leave the class and I go outside and I try to sit down in a chair and I'm like, oh my God, this hurts too much. And so I kind of slide out of this Adirondack chair onto the grass and I'm lying in the shade on the grass and I'm thinking, I'm having a massive heart attack and I'm going to die. And then I thought, I'm going to die. I've been waiting for this day since 1980. I've been praying for my death every day. Take me today. Today's a good day to go. And I'm like, okay. And then I thought to myself, oh, but all these friends of mine, there were mostly like 95% women in the class. And like, they're all going to walk out and they're going to find me dead out here. It's like, that's not going to be good. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, I should try to get up and get to my car and I get myself to the urgent care. So I sit up and I can't even sit up. It's like an elephant's pounding on my chest. I'm like, oh, okay. So I can't get up and I guess I'm going to die here. It's okay. I've been waiting. And so I'm lying there waiting to die. And about some 15 or 20 minutes go by and the teacher comes out, who I've known for a decade or more. And she's like, Peter, are you okay? I was like, no, I'm having a massive heart attack and I'm dying right now. And she's like, nah, you gotta be kidding me. And I was like, no, really. I'm telling you right now, I'm having a heart attack. She said, should I call the ambulance? I say, no, don't call the ambulance because I live in this small town and everybody, the volunteer ambulance, they're all over. It takes me, an hour to go to one place in my town sometimes. Because of the distance. I was like, there's not enough time. So I convinced her to get another one of my friends out of the class. And these two women, my teacher and my friend, they carry me over to my friend's car and she drives me to the urgent care center, which is like 3/4 of a mile away. So on the way over, I call over because it's a small town, get the doc on the phone. I know the doc. I'm like, hey, doc, I'm having a heart attack. And, my sister died of it. My grandfather died of it. My dad had it, yada, yada. And he said, oh, if it's a serious one, you need to go upriver to the hospital. So I live on a salt river on a peninsula. And that's like 35 minutes away. And I'm already 25 minutes into this. I'm like, hey
Yeah.
man, I've only got an hour.
Yeah.
And so, he's like, all right, come on over. I get to the hospital and all these nurses are there and I know all of them. And I'd been a minister in this town before. At this point, I'm not the minister, but I was the minister in the town. And some of them had been in my youth group. So there's like mom and daughter and I can see on their faces, they're all concerned. So they put me in the wheelchair. They rush me in. They take me in. They take a picture of my chest. They see 100% blockage in my descending aorta. So I'm having a widowmaker heart attack.
Yeah.
And there's a 3 to 5% survival rate of this. And I'm an hour and a half away from the catheterization lab.
Oh,
And so, they wheel me out and the doc says to me, he tells me what's going on and I can see. And because one of the things about at least my near-death experience is that I can read people really well.
yeah.
I see into them. I see their emotions. They can put a barrier up and I can't see through the barrier. But if there's no barrier, I can read right into them. And I'm like, oh, all these women, they're petrified for me. And the doc says, I can give you a decoagulant. Maybe you'll get a 3% trickle through. And I was like, give me the decoagulant. So he gives me the decoagulant. And then he's like, here's some morphine for the pain. I was like, no, I can't take morphine. It makes me sick. I'll be vomiting in my O2 mask in the back of that, diesel ambulance. And I use meditation to control my pain. It's an easy technique to learn how to do that. It's not hard. And so they load me on the gurney. The ambulance shows up. They load me on the gurney. My son is there. My wife is there. My son leans in and he looks me right in the eye, squeezes my hand, and all of this love pours out of him. And he says, I love you, Dad. And it's all mixed in with fear and concern and shock and all these other emotions. But there's this depth of love that is from the very core of his being. And I can see it and I can feel it. And my wife and the ambulance attendants are wheeling me to the bay doors, and my wife is next to me, and I squeeze her hand and I look up at her and I give her a wink and a little smile. And to me, what I'm saying to her is, I'm dying today. I've told you, first chance I get to be out of here, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And
God, that had to be so difficult for her to like live with that too.
Well, it was not easy for her or my kids. When I
Yeah.
finally came out, it was really difficult for my kids. And, that was years before, but it was a rocky road for some time. And so but my wife interpreted my smile and my wink as, "Oh, he's not going anywhere." And that's what she told my son on the ride down. But I was like, "I'm out of here. I'm freaking out of here." And so I get in the ambulance, the mask, and they got an IV in me, and we're off we go. And it's an hour and a half drive through summer traffic, and
Yeah.
the lights and the siren, and I'm breathing, practicing my meditation, keeping the pain at bay. And then at one point, sometime into it, I hear the paramedic radio in, "We're losing him. We're losing him." And she got panic in her voice. And I was like, "Oh, they're losing me." And so I opened my eyes and I look up at her face, and she's got the radio in her hand, and I read her. She's like, "This guy's dying, and I know he's dying," and it's all over her face. And then she sees me with my eyes open and right back into her professional face, and doesn't want to scare me, but the pain is too much for me. So I go back inside my meditation. Only as I go back inside my meditation, I close my eyes, I take a breath, and I'm not in my meditation. I am out of my body. And I
Oh,
am and I am out of my body, and there my body is like I'm like above it, and it's like a cave that I had exited. And it's this dark cave that I had exited, and I had to kind of come out of it, and I knew that I was in the ambulance, but I couldn't see the ambulance. I was in this darkness again, and I knew that my body was in the ambulance. And so I'm outside, and I am a light body again made of these photons, and I'm like, yeah, today I'm out of here. And I know what's going on. I know where I am. I've been waiting for this for 40 years. And the angel, the divine entity, comes down not so rapidly this time, but in smaller too. But it's speaking to me telepathically in plural. It's a, "Come to us. We've been waiting for you." It's like this celebration. They're all like giddy with joy. "He's coming. He's coming. It's his time." And I'm like, "Yes, it's my time." And they come down to me, and instead of enveloping me, and it's one entity speaking in this plural, I'm paralleling it. We go off together. I'm light and it's light, and we're going off as light beings together, kind of not really holding hands, but sort of. And so we're going off together. And then I think, well, my family's not prepared for this, and my son looked pretty scared. And so telepathically I say, "If it's all the same to you, I'm going to check everything out to make, because it's a shock to them. They're unprepared for this. I'm just going to make sure everything's okay." So I turn around, I go back inside my body, but it's still this cave. And I'm not connected to my body. I'm just kind of looking around inside, like with a flashlight. And I see my son's face come up, and I see that he's not ready for this in his life. He doesn't know what he's gonna do with his life without his dad there. He's in his mid-20s. And then I
mm,
see my daughter, and she had been in this abusive marriage. Guy had gone off to war and come back, bad things, really
mm.
bad things. And they had a baby, and we had just rescued the baby and my daughter. And I'm like, she needs me." And then I look at my granddaughter, who's like 9 months old at the time, inside, and I see her split in two, and I see two parallel lives again, like my parents. Life with me, life without me.
Mm,
And neither are terrible, because my,
yeah,
daughter, my wife rather, and they all love her, but there's no man in her life in one of them as a child, and there's a man in her life, me, in one of them. And as a result, she's better adjusted
right.
with a dad figure. So I kind of turn around and I go back out, and the entity, the angel, had receded. It kind of gave me some space, and then came right back. It's like, "Come on, come on, come on." And I said, I know that eventually I will die, and I'll come to be with you. But if it's all the same to you, they need me now. And the length of my life is the snap of my fingers. I can do this." And so I turned around and I went back in. And when I came to, I was being wheeled off into the catheterization situation. And I got my surgery, and damage. I got damage in my heart because it's scarring, and it took me a year to
Sure.
recover. And I've
Yeah.
never been the same again. But in the hospital room the next day, I was a different person again. All of my desire to go back, my prayer, my life of prayer daily to die, was gone.
Wow.
And my family's there, and a bunch of friends and some doctors I know, and a crowd of people. And the first thing I say when they all come in the room, I was like, I died yesterday. And my son says, yeah, the doc told me to say goodbye to you because nobody survives this
Yeah.
at distance, not with the damage. And my wife said, yeah, I told you he was going to survive. And I'm like, that's not what that wink meant.
Right.
Um, and so I had this TV show at the time. I was on every single morning on these two main television stations, giving an inspirational story just before the weather for 2 minutes. And as I'm in my hospital bed, and I've been on for 15 years, the vice president of the station calls and says, Peter, I know you just had a heart attack, but the station was just purchased by a new corporation and they want to cancel your show. And I'm like, and then I realized that I kept this a secret for 20 years. The whole time I was a minister, nobody knew but my wife and a couple of friends. It was leaking out all over the place. My ministry was unusual as a result. I did stuff that other people weren't doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my behavior was strange, eccentric as a
Yeah.
minister. But I realized I was working in New York with this TV show that I had in Maine. I was working in New York with a bunch of networks, and they got to know me. And one night we all went out to have drinks at dinner. And I'm not a drinker, but I had like 3 glasses of wine, and I ended up telling the story. They convinced me to write this book. And so I wrote this book. They sweetened the deal for me. So I wrote this book, and I was actually in the hospital bed when the publisher called and said, well, Amazon's releasing this a month early. You need to be in New York City in 9 weeks for this. We've got you booked on this national show. And I realized all of this, my second near-death experience, took away my desire to die immediately anyway. And it took away my need to hide. I realized,
Wow.
I'm all in now. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not doing this because for me, I'm doing this because it's been my job all the way along. I was the most reluctant person. I didn't want to do this. I would have done anything other than this, but it's what I signed up for. And so after this second death, what I'm asking is this. I'm asking that everybody who's had a near-death experience and you've kept it a secret, tell somebody else.
Yeah.
Tell somebody.
Great. That's great. I love that you've had that. I mean, everything happens. There's no coincidences. Everything happens for a purpose and a reason. So you really were hired by God to work, and you're doing his work now. But I have to ask you, because we only have a minute or so left, we're going to have to do a part 2 because I still have a whole bunch of questions that I didn't get to ask you. So I'll be in touch to schedule something if you don't mind.
Sure, please.
Thank you. So in closing, you just said that you want everybody to kind of come out and speak about their NDEs. What do you hope comes in? Because back like in the 70s even, nobody talked about NDEs or knew what they were. Now it's common knowledge. Like you don't even need to, you could just say NDE and most folks know. So what do you think comes of this? Is it hope for humanity? Is it, tell us.
It's hope for humanity. So there was a study some years ago where they understood that somewhere between 5 to 7% of the population has had NDEs.
Yeah.
And it's not just in the United States. It's all over the world. And there's a group in Israel called the International Association for Near-Death Studies. They're everywhere, but they're an American research group, scientific research group. But on the local level, the Israelis NDEers are talking to the Iranian NDEers.
Wow. No, that's good.
That's what can happen.
Yeah.
And so the more we bring this into the public square, and you're right, in the last 10 years, especially near-death experience, it's in the newspaper, it's in magazines, there's movies, it's becoming into the public square. The more we talk about it, the more we normalize it, the more we understand that the 2 main words, love and light, the more we understand that the better chance we have, because we're shoulder to shoulder on this planet right now, and we still have the same attitude of selfishness and tribalism
Yeah.
that's going to destroy us as a species if we don't watch out.
Yeah, very possible.
We have an opportunity where NDE supersedes religion, and I'm a professional religionist.
Yeah.
I study religion, and it's done good things in the world. It's done terrible things in the world.
It has.
It totally has.
The aspects I love about NDE stories. I mean, some of them bring religion into it because some people witness and talk to Jesus.
Sure.
It's very individual, but at the end of the day, it's all about unity, love, and spreading that message. But Peter, I have to tell you, I was glued. My ears were just honed in on every word today. And there's great lessons in what you're teaching us. And I truly want to thank you for that. And I'm very happy that you decided to stick around. It's a good thing for humanity, and we need it desperately. So thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. And I will be in touch because we need to do part 2 of this. I still have like 2 pages of questions to ask you.
Anytime.
Thank you so much, Peter. God bless, and I will be in touch soon.
God bless you too, Caroline. Peace to
Dear,
you.
take care. Peace to you. Bye-bye. Well, geez, I mean, I truly was glued. My dog knows that I have to bring him up to say hello because every time I say goodbye to you folks, he knows. He's so smart. This is a little Oliver, by the way. He's my little boy. Love him so much. But anyway, I wanted to thank you all so much. It's truly a blessing to be able to hear Peter's story. And I hope that it reached some part of you today. And definitely make sure that you hit that subscribe button because we will be doing part 2 hopefully soon. Hopefully Peter will have some time. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been and are listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New York. Please give our other hosts some love as well. And thank you all so much again for joining us. If you have any questions, please be sure to leave them below. Thank you all. I got to run, and God bless. Bye-bye.